Louisa Bisio,
Hi.
how are you?
Hi. Good. How are you? Nice to talk.
It is. It's amazing to have you and an honor. I see your work and I see what you're doing and it seems like you're all over. You're doing a lot of stuff. Um you're working with agencies now. Um and yeah, just I just want to know more about your journey to this point with like music and in general, what brought you to this point where you do what you do, how you do. So,
Sure. Yeah. I was in marketing and advertising for a while, like 10, 15 years, left in 2019 to just do something different. Wanted to get into songwriting and music production. So I started taking some courses there, different courses at different places to try to get better at that. And then at one point I realized, oh, I need to figure out how to make money from this. So I started learning about music publishing. And I realized through that I actually liked music publishing more than I liked music producing or trying to learn music production. So I got involved with an association called AIMP, Association of Independent Music Publishers. And then I just went to all the meetups. There was one weekend I was in New York, Nashville, and LA all in the same weekend to try to make all those
oof.
meetups. And from that, I met a sync agent who said, "Hey, I just saw you in LA. Do you want to come work with me at my label? I could use someone who just likes to meet with people." So he taught me about the sync world. And then I was still involved in marketing and advertising because I was on a board that I wasn't allowed to leave yet because you have to stay on the board for a full year. So through the advertising board, I met a sound house who found out I was a sync agent. They said, "We're looking for somebody who um, knows sync and needs a music supervisor." So they brought me in as a music supervisor, and so everything has just kind of been luck and meeting the right people and all of that.
So, okay, let's backtrack a little bit. When did music start for you?
2019, when I left corporate to get into music to do just focus, as I said, I was trying to get into music production and songwriting and all of that. So was still working on that while I was trying to learn about sync and music publishing and all of that. So and I still
Hmm.
work on music.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that you're still recording and stuff like that, and it's just like so. I would say like say why so interested in that. It's because you're coming from the outside in. Does that make sense? You're
I think
coming from the
so.
out so, I'll explain. You're
Okay.
coming from a place where you've been in corporate, you've been in that whole, a little bit more of a business-y side,
Mhm.
and you're
Mhm.
going into music. Well, where most music, even most library owners, as you know, they're musicians or, ex-musicians or, like,
Mhm.
people who started with music and then resorted to the business side. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I like that you use the word resorted, but yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah.
was it incorrect? I
No,
mean,
no,
English.
no. It's not incorrect. It's a good word because it's like that unfortunate like I guess I need to find, means to an end, and it's just an unfortunate reality. It's a good word, I
Yeah,
guess.
and I feel like people are afraid to say it, like are afraid to use that kind of terminology because because it makes them maybe sound like a failure. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, because the same thing sort of happened to me. Of course, it's might be sort of great to get to be creative all the time. I went back into corporate 2021, 2022, but I actually find that I enjoy working on music more doing that, not just because I can afford it, but just because it's not a forced it's not forced creativity. I don't think I liked when I was having to be creative for work. I enjoy it a lot more now when it's for fun.
Yeah, it brings up the point where I mean, it's nice to look at things in hindsight, but also Rick Rubin says like if I wouldn't have been, I was totally I was totally ready to accept being a plumber or whatever, like doing some other things to be able to actually do music, and music ended up
Yeah.
being what I do for a living, but it wasn't
Yeah.
meant to be like that, you know?
Yeah. That's cool.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean, you never know.
yeah. So I also I would love to double click on the fact that, you know, affording things, also like being able to afford the things you do, is
Yeah.
very freeing creatively.
Oh man, I'm happy you said that. Yeah, absolutely. I think, people might bash it because they might say, you should just stick to being a creative if you want to be a creative and you might be giving up, but I don't think it's that way at all. And I think freeing is a perfect word because absolutely, yeah, being able to afford your ideas is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in that journey right now where I'm like, I've had really successful years as a musician, but I'm like, but I'm at that point where I'm like, is this, will I have to actually like divide this business thing and this music thing in order to actually be successful? And it looks like the answer is actually yes for me right now, at the moment. And yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, it's just like 2024 has been a very very humbling year for me,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
that sense, where music's becoming kind of a transaction because I'm looking to sell it more than anything. And then it just took a little bit of the life out of it. It's okay.
Sorry about my dog.
I have dogs here too. They're gonna bark.
Okay.
They're gonna bark throughout our interview too. Don't worry
Okay.
about
Thanks.
it. Yeah, all the people who listen to it know my dog, so that's cool. Now they know yours.
Good.
Um, so I mean, yeah, and that's been super interesting to me. Seeing people who like you openly say, yeah, I come from the outside in, and that's fine. Whereas people, I feel like me, are maybe too proud to go there. Um, and you know, some of my listeners have families and stuff like that, so they need to even they have more under to take care of.
Hmm.
So I find that fascinating that you're
Yeah.
speaking to that. To
Yeah. I also have this theory that it's just I don't know the right word for it, but it's somebody asked me one time what's something that you wish your younger self knew, and my go-to response is that the backup plan is bullshit.
yeah.
And I say that because I mean I think this is a result of having a backup plan. You have to go to university for a degree to do the safe job, and imagine all of that energy if I had put that towards what I wanted to do instead of going the safe route, where would I be in life? So that could just be I'm just working with what I know, and that's where I'm at now.
Mm. So what do you feel, what do you feel brought you really to do art? Was it something you were kind of looking at all your life? Was it something you
Oh
were in and
yeah.
out? What was that?
I was always dabbling in arts and creative stuff. Like, when we had to do book reports for school, instead of writing a book report, I would make a pop-up book, or I was always like in some kind of film um, program or animation or drawing. Like, I was just always dabbling in different mediums of creativity. And I didn't know what I wanted to do as a job. I just knew I liked telling stories and I liked being creative and I liked art. So I was always jumping from art medium to art medium.
Mm. So what was okay? So when you discovered music, music supervision and music, being a music agent and all that, what was that like for you? What did it entail for you? And what did it look like for you? Like what did it do to your life? How did it enhance you?
I don't know if it really well, I think it just helped me realize things I liked and don't like. So because I came from marketing and advertising, I would, put together the storyboards. I would write what the campaign is, for example, because I work a lot in advertising, on the music supervision side. So when I was doing music supervision, for me, honestly, it was really hard because as a music supervisor, you don't have a lot of say in what gets placed and what doesn't get placed. Yeah, we might be able to get music from different artists, but at the end, it's producers that have a say. It's the editors that have a say. It's, everybody else. The showrunners have a say. I mean, we can pass music along, but we don't have that much say in anything.
Mm,
Um, so for me, that was really hard because I was coming from the other side of that, where I would either put together the storyboard or produce what I thought the music should be, or, um, I just had a lot more say. So it was actually hard to go to the other side where you don't have much say at all. Um, so I think that's sort of why I went back into advertising, because I could just see the bigger picture.
mm,
And then I'll work with some music supervisors now and say, okay, now I need you to find the music, and this is the music I'm looking for.
mm,
As a sync agent, though, I felt like that was a lot more fun because as a sync agent, I can just listen to really good music or my friend's music and then pass it along to a music supervisor so they can suggest it or pitch it. So I felt like that was actually more fun because I felt like I could help provide more opportunities than I could. Um, I mean, yeah, it just felt like you were doing a lot more asking when you were in music supervision versus sync. I just pass the playlist along and then it's out of my hands. And then I just work from brief to brief and pass music along. So in music supervision, you're just doing a lot more
mm.
admin and a lot more asking.
Yeah, I remember about when Kira Lehman was talking in one of his interviews. He was talking about one of the songs he placed in. Was it? Yeah, it was. I think it was. Jump Street 22, where he went into and I'm not, maybe I'm mixing stories here, but the story is valid. Like he went into the editor, they had the song, and he was like, "This is the perfect song. There's no way like there's something else." And then the producer and the editor came, not the producer and the editor, the producer and director, something like that. They came in the room, they had a spotting session, and they shat all over it. They were like, "This is not what we're looking for." Like, and he was so upset, and he was explaining that. And I was like, "Man, this must be like a heartbreaking moment. It must be
Yeah.
like yeah, you're like putting your whole being
I mean, and
into
that's just for one song.
oh yeah, it's one song out of like what 300 in this
Well,
movie or
what
whatever."
I mean, yeah, and so there's a project I worked on where we worked. It was a short film, and um, the filmmaker said, "I want '80s comedy style music," and then he gave us an example scene, and so I spent probably all night, all day, sending him a playlist that matched his request. And then from that, he came back and said, "No, I actually want hip hop."
Oh my
So
god.
then we had to start all over. And then I sent him some options. And then he said, "Actually, I think I'm going to go for pop." And then at some point, we had to just say, "Look, we've sent you five different things. We usually spend like all night if we can, going through all these libraries, finding all the different tracks, starting all over. So you're going to have to pick with what we sent you because we have these other projects that we need to get done." I mean, it was someone we were doing a favor for them, so we were able to be a little more upfront and say, "Look," because the
Mm,
thing is we get paid the same. It doesn't matter how many hours we're spending. So they could just spend all day going in circles, going back and forth, changing their
right.
mind, but our pay is the same. So with this person, we were able to say, "You just have to pick with what we've already sent you," or I don't know. But I mean, yeah, that happens too.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like I mean, I've also worked in sound branding. I've done a little bit of sound branding,
That's
and
fun.
that was yeah, super fun, but also
Hmm.
very tricky for the person who was my leader, so to speak. Like the person who was he the I don't remember the title, but he was facilitating the whole music to image kind of thing, and he was just sharing with me. We became friends, and he shared with me the frustrations that he had with the clients, like asking for such weird things, like yeah, I
Yeah.
want my song to sound like a table or something like that, like shit like that
Hmm.
that doesn't make sense in any and you see it in ads too, but I would guess that in ads it's a little bit more it may be a little bit less because it's for one thing, it's for one product. So How was your experience with both?
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it'll be for multiple products. They might say it's sort of like sonic branding. They might say we always kind of want to go for this tone and this sound. So we've had that happen too. And working in sonic branding, which what's nice about that is at least in my experience, those are the projects where we get to have a little more creativity because I can work with the composers and say, okay, this is what I hear from the client and what they're going for. Um, well, I guess sometimes when we have custom music spots and we're not doing library spots, we might have more creative involvement.
Yeah, so what's the I love that. It's a great transition. So what's the range of what you do as an editor? Like what's in I guess what lights you up about doing these things that you do, because it sounds like you got interested, you got kind of hooked into this world.
I mean,
Um
I definitely fell into it. I would say it wasn't. I think there are probably people that are more hooked and excited about the role than probably I was, and then that's probably why I went back into. I stepped back and went back into more the creative director side of it. Um, but what keeps me staying into it is the opportunity to find opportunities for my friends if I can. And that's probably why I'll still stay involved with it. So right now I'm collecting filmmakers, and the plan is to just write a film around all the songs that have been on my dream list to sync, because
oh wow.
you'll have a list of songs that you'll just love and list of artists that you'd love to sync, but you never get projects for them. So what I'd like to do is write a couple of films and work with some filmmakers that's just built around the songs I've been wanting to sync. And I don't know if they'll go anywhere, but I just would like to place these songs, and then I feel like I
Mm.
could check it off my list and then move on.
Yeah, I mean, so Denver has such a good music scene, in my opinion, and from what I remember, I have
I think so
amazing
too.
friends from my time in Denver, and yeah, amazing talents musicianally. It's a new word. I
Great
just
filmmaker scene too.
what?
Great filmmaker scene too out here.
Yeah, I did not know that, but I remember it was mostly like there was mostly a lot of avant-garde, like a lot of, and not I don't know if avant-garde is the word, but like a lot of like jazzy slash things that almost get placed but not really, like very specific. But I know that people are so talented in Denver. There is amazing talent there. So I totally, when you were speaking about it, I was kind of visualizing all the people that I've jammed with and played live with, and all these people shining. And I feel like, yeah, that's an amazing thing. That's an amazing cause. Like to build the movie like backwards, I
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens, how it goes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that's what's next for you. Yeah, like that's kind of your current thingy. What else? What do you feel like? Okay, that's a question that's been in my head. What do you feel like separates artists that are successful in music in general and in the sync space from artists that don't really make it, so to speak?
Um, I don't know. I mean, probably artists who are just doing the legwork, doing the research is usually where it all starts. They're looking at what projects people are working on, what kind of music are they currently placing. I mean, that's just kind of the go-to answer, because that really is just where everything starts, is where if artists are doing their research, not just on what the music supervisor is looking for, but also how to submit tracks and um, when to back off and all those things. Having all of their information in order, their split sheets, their master, their publishing, all of that stuff is all in order. They have their IPI, their PRO, all that stuff is submitted along with their music. They have all the stems ready to go, all that stuff.
Mm. And okay. And do you feel like if an artist wants to go in to the sync world and make it their thing, would you suggest to go for like agencies, for libraries, for
Yeah.
approach supervisors? What are your thoughts?
I'd suggest to go through libraries and sync agents because we'll get music supervisors will get pitched so much stuff. There's it's just hardly ever will work directly with a writer who I went actually was at a panel last month, I think, with a handful of music supervisors, and one of the questions the panelists asked is, "Have you ever used music or placed music from a cold email or a cold call?" And almost all of them said no. I think actually all of them said no. Um, a lot of them, they will just have their go-to libraries and their go-to sync agents, and it's just quicker and faster, and everything's ready to go. I just think that's where an artist should start. Of course, there's always artists that have been able to figure it out and have a direct contact and all that stuff. But just if you want to increase, if you're just getting started and want to increase your likelihood, it's probably the best route.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the artists that have direct contacts almost seem like anomalies to me. It's interesting, but it's also a thing that I have to remind myself as I'm speaking to you that this whole thing, this whole web and network, it takes years to build. And for somebody to think about you in the given moment of a Super Bowl commercial or like of a big opportunity, it's legwork and it's following up and it's a lot of things that not many are willing to engage in. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's it's a great reminder. So yeah, so I feel like we've covered a bunch of ground. I mean,
Well, just really quick, just while you're on that point too. I mean, just as far as doing research, and if it is something that artists are really looking into, this is an example of research where you say, "I this is where I want to be. I'm an artist that wants to be in this space." So, where are music supervisors hanging out? What are the conferences that are coming up? So, Durango Songwriters Expo is an example of that. Sync conference is a big one. Um, National Association of Recording Industry Professionals. There's just all these things that if you really are serious about it, you just do a Google search and you'll find all these places where you can access briefs and supervisors and figure out how to get your song pitched in front of them. So, yeah, everything just starts with doing good research if it's something you're really interested in.
yeah, that's amazing. You're getting my wheels fired up for sure. So I'm sure that somebody on the other side of this is definitely experiencing the same. Um, yeah, Louisa, thank you. Are there any last is there any last piece of wisdom you want to leave people with?
I don't know. There's a book that I like to recommend to everyone that's a really helpful book. It's called Thinking in Sync by Amanda Craig Thomas. It's amazing. It's a good thin little guidebook, but in that book she talks about what artists should have if they want to reach out to a music supervisor or sync agent. She lists conferences. She lists a bunch of resources in there. So that's probably a good little book to start with if you're wanting to if you're just getting started and wanting to figure out how to get in touch with sync and supervision.
Funny. I think me and Amanda were talking at some point. I feel like she's maybe gonna be a guest also on the podcast, but
Oh,
it's
cool.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
so awesome. I
yeah.
love her. I was at the Guild of Music Supervisors conference in March, and she was in a crowd of people, and I didn't realize that she was talking to, I don't know if you know Lisa Loeb, but she was big in the 90s. And I interrupted her conversation with Lisa Loeb to ask Amanda if I could get a picture with her, and then realized later, oh my gosh, that was Lisa Loeb. I can't believe I. So I went back and I said, "Hi, Lisa, can I get a photo with you too?" Because I wanted it to be even. But Amanda's just so cool, and I like her. I respect her.
Wanted it to be even. That's hilarious. I feel like I feel like so. I have a theory before we wrap up. I
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
theory that like people who are superstars and whatever, they would way rather take your photo with somebody and you not knowing who they are rather than you
Oh,
like I
you might
have a
be right.
theory like that. Like if you go up to Brad Pitt and ask for him to take a photo of you, he'll go like,
That might be a funny thing to test out and try. There should be somebody that starts a channel where they ask celebrities to take photos of them and someone else and
Yes,
just see their reaction. That's
yes.
cool.
I feel like yeah, I feel like that would be a really good thing to show people because yeah, because these people are people in the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's the same and that ties back to supervisors. They're people. They're not just gonna they have like y'all have so much clutter in your world and in your life and from people like us, like we're literally the pests. Artists are literally the pests, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah.
And it's not to say like it's not to say that there aren't people who are great. It's just the noise is too big to
Yeah.
reach somebody like you in just a cold email. So I feel like what you're saying is huge. Like also it brings up a lot with me, and I feel like another thing that came up from this interview is just like research the person, know who you're speaking to, like
Yeah. Yeah.
understand who if you want to approach Louisa, you have to. I feel like there has to be something like a little something that is more, that is a
Personal.
little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Um,
think that would just be a nice way to start the conversation because everybody will start it with, "Hey, I have music. What are you looking for right now?" It would be nice if you could acknowledge, "Hey, I saw you also like to dabble in painting. I loved your painting where you did this." And then they would probably be more apt to want to talk to you because they appreciate you treating them like a person.
yeah, there was actually like in PMC when I went to PMC
I
and
almost went.
damn,
How was it?
it was amazing.
I should have
And
gone. Huh?
yeah, everybody was there basically. Like from yeah,
I
it
bet.
was just
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
I
I
bet.
mean, like I felt like I was surrounded by greatness, and I got to make some amazing connections with. Oh, you hear my dogs?
Yeah, that makes me feel better. Thank you.
Hey, there you go. There you go. Wait for them to shut up. No, we'll just keep going. But you know, it's the amount of greatness that was there was just it was phenomenal. And I felt like to go through to be able to actually go through and have some talk to somebody. You have to go through the bullshit. Like you have to move past the bullshit. I feel like of the like,
Yeah,
hey, what do you do? What are you? La la la. Like
yeah,
I would sometimes go into a conversation with a really obnoxious statement, like just to test the ground, because you know there are people who are not who I'm not supposed to talk with,
yeah,
and if they don't share my humor or don't share my sense of conversation,
yeah,
then it's not even maybe not even a conversation worth having.
yeah.
So
Well, and actually, to that point too, because some people just think music supervisor, they're all created the same. If I can just get my music to a music supervisor, then I'm in. But thing is there are some music supervisors that only work with big labels. They'll only work with artists who are signed to a publisher. And then there's supervisors who only work with indie artists, and then supervisors who only work with sync library. So I think it's important to know that just because you might be talking to a supervisor, they might not ever be able to place your music because it's just not the kind of music they work with. Yeah, a friend of mine, she works with ads, and her brands only want to work with signed big name artists like Rihanna and all of that. So, um, and it's hard because I'll see some of these supervisors at panels giving advice to indie artists, but they're getting advice from the wrong person. You wanted to hear from a
mm,
supervisor who places indie music. So that's why research is important.
wow. That's a huge one because and I haven't thought about it, but yeah, everything gets granular, right? Like, there's so much blanket advice out there of
Yeah,
like,
it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
of like, yeah, approach X amount of people and you'll get X amount, and you get X amount on libraries and you'll get X amount the next year, and I'm like, that's all bullshit. Like, it's
yeah.
literally
You might have been wasting your time.
yeah, I
Like,
mean, like 100%. It's like people are just. I mean, they're trying to sound smart, and I feel like the whole thing this podcast is about is talking about the whole change of the landscape, like the whole fact that this is not stable ground. Like, this is not a podcast for everyone, because there's hard truths here. Like,
Yeah.
you can make a crazy royalty statement as an artist. You can make an amazing 5-figure royalty statement, high 5-figure, and then the next one get $5. It can happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just, some people want to see the way the world works right now is in algorithms, right? Like, it
Hmm.
shows us what we want to see. So if we're pro trans rights, or pro
Hmm.
Jews, or pro Palestinians, or pro whatever, you're just going to get bombarded with what you see. So your
Hmm.
opinion around that is going to get stronger. And I feel like I want this podcast to be about not doing that, completely like
Cool.
annihilating whatever you were thinking. So I think that what you were saying just, it crushes a lot of myths, and it gives me a little bit of goosebumps. So
Yeah, it's good. It's good for more people to know that, because now they're not trying to just email blast everyone and then get down on themselves when they don't get a response. Now, if you email blast 5 people who only work with indie artists, you're probably going to have a better chance. And so, just to give you another example too, I worked at a sound house for a little bit, and my job as a music supervisor there was to place place music with our ads, but we could only use what was inside our current catalog. We only worked with our internal composers. So I was useless as a music supervisor from how other artists know music supervisors. If you sent
right.
me tracks, I can't do anything with them, because I only place music that was made by our composers for the brands that we worked with. So just to give you an example of, the title is there, but the title isn't always what artists know of.
A
And
hundred
then you
percent.
mentioned earlier gatekeeper. I mean, we're not, in that sense, we're not the gatekeeper either, because in that context, it's all what the client wants, what the client says, and from there, it could be the creative director, it could be the producer. Yeah,
Mm.
so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say maybe I'm mistaken it from a middleman, or somebody who's in but I think it's more than a middleman, because you're doing so much more, in my opinion. You're curating
Yeah.
for the gate person. So you're basically making the gates person look good. And that's the biggest thing, with, I feel like, with supervision. The people who I find are most successful, in general, I think, in many areas, but in supervision too, is people who are super, like, humble. They're less eccentric. They're more, the way that I found it, they're just more able to take hard criticism and move with it in a very humble way. Because when you're making music in general for sync, or when you're curating for sync, you're basically, you're giving up on yourself, which is a
Oh,
very,
sounds sad.
it's a cool thing. You're just doing it for a bigger thing. And
Oh,
I
I
really
see.
feel like that's a cool thing, where
Hmm.
I would do a sound branding gig, and I would have to use the logo of the brand. That would be a very cool thing, because it's the identity, right? Or creating
Hmm.
an identity was so cool.
Hmm.
Because again, you have to completely get out of what you think is right, and adapt to what is like
Hmm.
what is right for the client. So
Hmm.
it's more than a middleman, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. Being a
Yeah.
creative is hard when you're trying to make money from it, because you lose your creativity when you're trying to do everything for the client. That's why I think it's just been nice to dabble in creative on the side and not as a job. I didn't like that.
You lose your creativity when you try to be creative, and that's the
Hmm.
weirdest thing. That's the, like, the most, the 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 thing that, I mean, it's been definitely my artist journey, but in general, I feel like that's been the greatest albums came out of nothing. Like, my best tracks came out of a scooter ride, where I was just thinking about nothing, and suddenly this melody just, like, washes over
Showers,
me.
the bathroom,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
toilet.
yeah, and then,
Yeah,
like, I mean, yeah, who Einstein got a bunch of his ideas, I think, in, like, either shower or something like that.
I believe it.
But I think the biggest thing about it also to remember is that creativity needs to be honed too. So creativity doesn't just come and expresses itself to the world. So if you are exercising creativity, and if you are putting yourself and showing up and putting in the hours for a creative, I feel like that's where opportunity meets skill meets,
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of things that need to happen. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's, I agree with what you're saying, and I'm adding this. I feel like it does need to be a craft either
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
So oh wow, we ended up riffing for another 15 minutes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it when when the conversation get a little bit passionate and we get carried away. I think I'm good. Like Louisa,
Cool.
that's been an amazing conversation for me, and I feel
Good.
like people are gonna
Happy.
get so much out of this like little condensed piece of audio that we've just created. So
Very cool. Yeah,
yeah,
and if they wanna reach out to me on Instagram and have more questions, I'm here.
I will leave that in the show notes. Louisa, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. If you want any other guests, let me know and I'll send them your way.
Hell yeah.